You're listening to Physician Non-Clinical Careers, episode number 345, How to Secure Your First Utilization Management Job. In only a few weeks from now, the second annual Non-Clinical Career Summit will be starting. It's not entirely non-clinical in its scope, however. We have experts talking about discerning whether it's medicine you need to leave or just your job or current boss. And we'll cover several types of clinical practices that enable you to be your own boss, opt out of the hassles of insurance participation, and build an asset that you can sell later. We have Dr. Lisa Jenks to teach you about med spas, and the team of Dr. Jennifer Allen and Kimberly Lowe, a nurse, to explain why an infusion lounge might be a good choice for your next or first small business. We'll also present outright non-clinical work such as expert witness, freelance medical legal pre-litigation consulting, or becoming a medical affairs associate for a medical device company. And that's why we're calling this year's summit Clinical Practice, Make It Great or Move On. And the tagline is recognize dysfunction, fix it, and protect yourself or seek better opportunities. So, and if you recall, like last year, you can register and attend the live event completely for free, absolutely no cost to participate, and even include a question and answer period at the end of each section. This whole thing starts on April 16th. And to learn more about that, you can go to nonclinicalcareersummit.com, check it out, read about all the bios and the topics, and sign up now. There will be a cap on the number of live participants we can accommodate. Let's see. Now, for today, because of this summit, I want to give you a sense of the quality of our speakers on this year's summit. And to do that, I'm presenting you an excerpt from one of last year's most popular presentations. And this is part one of a lecture provided by Dr. Jonathan Vitale. And it accomplishes two primary goals: describing what utilization management is and his proven method for securing your first full-time position as a medical director. And he should know, since he's employed full-time as a manager for clinical operations at a big company, and he's the one that recruits new medical directors at the company where he works. Before we get into Jonathan's lecture, however, I have a couple more important messages. First, I want to remind you that this podcast is sponsored by the Physician Executive MBA program at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville's Haslam College of Business. In less than one calendar year, this program will equip you with valuable business acumen and leadership development not found in the traditional medical school curriculum. Are you ready to join the longest-running physician-only MBA program in the country and a network of nearly 1,000 PEMBA graduates? If so, contact Dr. Kate Ashley's office at 865-974-6526 or go to nonclinicalphysicians.com/physician MBA. That's all one word. Dr. Jonathan Vitale was a practicing family physician, and he made a decision about 7 years ago to shift to a completely non-clinical career in utilization management. And besides serving as clinical operations manager for a team of about 25 physician reviewers, he is the founder of the 14,000 member Remote Jobs for Physicians Facebook group. So today's podcast episode includes the first half of his 50-minute presentation on this topic at last year's summit, in which he answers this question: how do I get my first job with a large company? All right, so we jump into this lecture just after the introduction I did last year ends, and we get right into it. I hope you enjoy it.
Remote careers and utilization management. So let me talk about I'm going to talk about myself a little bit and how I got to what I do today. And then I'm going to talk about what is or utilization management. I'll talk about the types of the day-to-day of a doctor, then the compensation, which everybody's very interested in, the application process, how to get experience so that you can apply, how to build your CV, how to get appropriate coaching if you need that. And then I'm happy to answer any questions. So again, I'm Dr. Jonathan Vitale. I'm a board certified family physician. I had a pretty traditional journey to being a family physician. And today I'm a manager of utilization management physicians at one of the top health insurance companies in the country. So I'll tell you a little bit about my journey on how I got there. I had a pretty typical path to becoming a family doctor, except I picked up a master's in counseling before medical school. And after medical school, I did residency in Chicago in family medicine. And then I moved to New York City, where I live now, for my first attending job at kind of a concierge clinic that I thought I would enjoy, because I really did not like the traditional doctor's schedule, the traditional working nights and weekends, working a lot. And after doing that for really just a few years, I decided that I needed to transition. I was very fortunate. I'm one of the very fortunate people to have heard about very early on. I actually knew about it when I was in high school, because my brother has type 1 diabetes, and my parents would always be getting rejections from the insurance companies. And I always wondered why. And I would ask my mother, and she would tell me that they had doctors working at insurance companies making decisions. So I'm one of the very lucky people who knew about and was intrigued by it very early on, although that's probably only about 1% of docs who knew what it was before they became burnt out. But something that another thing I wanted to say is welcome to everybody to this amazing community. The community of non-physician, of non-clinical, or as I call us, non-traditional physicians, is a very, very warm community. It's a very welcoming community. And it's a community of people who really want to help you transition into a job that you love. And what I've kind of came to the realization of early in my medical career was that doctors in general, from day one of saying you're a pre-med, day one of deciding you're pre-med, you are overworked, you are underappreciated, you are underpaid. And that continues for, the 10 or 15 years it takes you from day one of pre-med to becoming an attending. And I think that what happens is a lot of people just become very used to being treated that way. And doctors, that's why so many doctors do so much extra work for free. I mean, name another profession where you work extra hours and aren't paid for it, or you're doing your charts at night, not paid for it, or on weekends, not paid for it, or taking call nights and weekends, not paid for it. And I never understood that. And it always bothered me immensely, because I think physicians are amazing. We have so much to offer, and we should be fairly compensated and respected for that. And that was one of the things that got me into wanting to transition. And also my background as a counselor is really what got me interested in after I kind of got there, coaching other physicians on how they too can get there. So what I do today, in addition to my utilization management job, is I also coach physicians. Specifically, I help people get remote careers, mostly in but I do know about other fields as well. So you can always reach me at drjonathan.com, or email me at drjonathan@drjonathan.com. Or please, as John mentioned, join our Facebook group of Remote Careers for Physicians, which is a wonderful community of physicians helping out physicians who are interested in remote careers. I always joke that I was into remote careers before being in a remote career was cool. I started the Remote Careers Facebook group in 2018. And since the pandemic, it's exploded. Nowadays, everybody wants a remote career, it seems like. And I think it's as best of a time as any to transition into this field. But I'm especially going to be talking about tonight, utilization management. So what is utilization management? It's also called utilization review. But for tonight, we're going to call it or utilization management. So the best definition I could find is it's a systematic approach used by healthcare organizations, insurance companies, and other stakeholders to evaluate and manage the appropriateness, efficiency, and cost effectiveness of healthcare services. So the primary goal of is to ensure that patients receive the right care at the right time in the right setting while minimizing unnecessary treatment costs and potential harm. Another way I think about it is we reduce fraud, waste, and abuse, probably mostly waste. Probably 80% of what we deal with are wasteful orders or wasteful requests, et cetera, which we'll talk more about later. So there's really three main buckets of companies. And I always like to be very general about how I describe this, and then we'll move down into some specifics. So there's private companies. These are those third-party companies that I always talk about, which are good companies to try to get experience with. Those are superfluous. Many of them are listed on NIRO.org, which we'll talk about later. Then there's healthcare systems or hospital systems, which also hire nurses and doctors. And then probably the most common for full-time docs would be insurance companies. So insurance companies also hire their own nurses, their own doctors, their own physical therapists, pharmacists, et cetera. And these are the big names you've all heard of. This is your Aetnas, your Humanas, your Uniteds, your Anthems, your Kaisers. They all hire their own clinicians to work for them. And what you do in is essentially usually one of three things, right? There's prior authorizations. Everybody's heard about a prior auth. Everybody knows what a prior auth is. There's certainly a lot of attention in the news nowadays around prior auths and reducing the paperwork associated with prior authorizations. But there's a lot of that goes along with that. So a physician orders a test, a study, a medication, a home health service, which I'm involved with, and the prior auth physician determines whether or not that meets certain criteria, and most importantly, whether or not it is medically necessary. That's prior auth. And there's also concurrent reviews. This is very common in the hospital setting. When we're talking about bed days and how long a patient can stay in a hospital, how is this patient doing day to day? They're checking in to see if they can extend and give them more days, or if they're suitable to go home or go to rehab or go to a different level of care. That's called concurrent reviews. And then the final one is probably the smallest, and those are retrospective reviews. Those are done when the service has already been provided, already been rendered, and now they are reviewing it on the back end to see if it was medically necessary and if it fit the guidelines. So the reason why a lot of people go into is really primarily, I would say, what attracts people is the lifestyle, meaning it's typically remote. It's typically 40 hours a week when you're in a full-time gig. It's typically salaried position, typically, not always. Also, you have very low liability. Basically, you're not practicing medicine. So, you don't need malpractice insurance. You carry errors and omissions insurance. It's interesting work. It's a very comfortable pace, and you're not patient facing. So it's a much lower stress job. And you have typically, generally speaking, nights and weekends off and holidays off. In terms of compensation, and this is a very hot topic, I'm asked this all the time, there's really not good national data not good national average data. So I will tell you what I see, because I look at hundreds of positions for all the time. And I would say, and there's a very big range. I'm sorry, I can't be more specific, but generally, if you're a full-time physician and you're in one of the primary care areas, you're typically talking about the lower to mid $200,000 range as a W-2 base salary. I've seen it all the way up to 300, maybe a little bit more for people like oncologists or people with very, very high demand skills. But keep in mind, in addition to that, first of all, that's 40 hours a week. But in addition to that base salary, we're also talking about merit increases, which typically happen every year on the order of usually around 2 to 3%, but it can be more than that. In addition to that, you're talking about quarterly or annual bonuses. And you're also talking about usually a stock gift if you work at a large insurance company, as I do. So there's a lot of additional compensation that's also very attractive. So always keep that in mind. I always like people to keep that in mind when they're saying, hey, but I make so much more money than that. I say, yeah, but you probably work 80 hours a week and are 100 times more stressed. So keep that in mind. Some other things I wanted to talk about is basically the process of what your typical day looks like when you're doing most UM. And I'm going to talk about full-time jobs, and then we'll talk about the gigs. Okay, the full-time jobs, which are kind of the cream of the crop of UM, which are those very, very highly desired 40-hour-a-week full-time jobs, which are very competitive, is you typically have a set number of cases that you're reviewing per day. There's nothing, you're not chained to your desk. You're not, it's not like it is in most clinical practices where every second of your time is scheduled and monitored, and you need to be patient facing in order to bill. No, I mean, you typically have a set number of cases that you're attempting to get through. Sometimes there's peer-to-peers involved as well. And sometimes you have a few meetings and things like that when you're at the kind of the basic medical director level. Medical director's entry level for utilization management. And then there are also opportunities to grow, kind of like Maria was talking about at MSL. There's some opportunities to grow into more of a team lead and manage a team. And then there's opportunities for being a manager and managing a larger team, which that's what I do. I manage a large team of UM physicians, and I also hire them and interview them. And then there is also the opportunity to branch out into other fields in health insurance companies, which other people are talking about in their lectures tonight. So I won't get too much into that. So something I do want to talk about is some of the other gigs in utilization management. So there are small companies, usually these third-party companies that exist, and they do certain reviews. They may be doing reviews for a certain procedure. They may be doing reviews for a certain medication. And what they'll do is they'll have a panel of doctors, of 1099 or independent contractor physicians, who they will reach out to and say, hey, we have this request for this medication. Can you review it for us? And we'll pay you X number of dollars. It's usually very low, by the way. It's usually like $20, $30. And those companies exist, and they are superfluous. And a lot of physicians look at that and say, I'm not doing that. And I say, you don't understand. You have to do that. You do that to get experience. You don't do that to make money. You do it as a side gig while you're still in your other clinical job so that you can get some experience under your belt in doing UM so that you can put that on your CV. And that's why you do those roles for 6 to 12 months so that you can actually have some experience to talk about when you apply for those big full-time positions. Now, how do you get these gigs? It's pretty simple. I talk about it all the time on Remote Careers. You just go to NAIRO.org, N-A-I-R-O, the National Association of Independent Review Organization.org. You click on members. Again, you don't become a member. You click on members, and you scroll all the way down, and it lists the logos of 20 or 30 of these companies. You go to every one of those individual company websites, and you navigate the website, and you click on apply to be on the physician panel. And you submit your CV to every one of them. And I guarantee you at least 2 or 3 of them will contact you within the week and put you on their panel. And that means you are now getting UM experience. So that's a great way to get UM experience. Yes, it does take a lot of time to sign up for all of them. I never said it would be easy. And it's a great way to get your first step in the door. I always say this, my specialty is helping doctors who have no other experience, no outside experience, normal, average doctors. I guess no doctor's average, we're all awesome. But I would say regular doctors into the world of UM who have no prior or outside experience, no connections, nothing else. That's what I help people to do because that's how I got involved. After you have that, the next thing that you need to do is after you've done that for 6 or 12 months, that's when you're able to actually apply to these full-time UM gigs that most people want. Like every other non-traditional job, especially nowadays, it is very competitive, right? However, what I can say, and I think this is really, really important, that it's not that it's super, super competitive, which it is, but it's more so the fact that doctors are used to it being ridiculously easy to get a job, right? If you're a regular, traditional outpatient family doctor, been working at your clinic for 10 years, and now you want to move to a different city next week and you want a job there, all you have to do is send out an email with your CV to a couple people and you'll probably get 100 job offers the same week. Okay. That's how it is for clinical doctors. We're very spoiled. We think that but that is not how it is when you make the transition. And that's something that you really have to psychologically get behind and understand that for many people, it's going to take a year, sometimes 2 years, to actually make that transition, to get enough applications in, to get rejected enough. As you always hear me on Facebook, for those who follow me, I always say to people, you haven't been rejected enough yet. That's your main problem. It takes a lot of rejection, a lot of getting ghosted before you get your position, but you will get there. Don't worry, you will get there. It's just a process. So the thing that you also want to do is you want to work on your CV, and there's lots of coaches to help you with this. I'm one of them, but there's certainly many other coaches who can help you with this, many of whom you're hearing about these past 3 nights. And you also want to work very hard on your interview skills, and coaches can help you with that. I can certainly help, as can all the other coaches. And what you want to do is you want to make it your job to every day apply and send in your CV to openings for utilization management. These are typically listed. I like to keep things simple. They're typically listed on Indeed, on LinkedIn, and also on the private insurance companies' websites. So what I encourage people to do who are interested in a life of is every single day, you are to, it only probably takes about an hour out of your day. You want to be visiting every one of those websites, and you want to be searching. You want to save this in your search. You want to be searching for medical director, utilization review, utilization management, utilization review physician, physician reviewer, MD reviewer, all those synonymous terms that a lot of companies use. And then you want to be looking for those positions, and you want to be submitting your CV. Yes, absolutely. Networking is great if you can do that. If you have any contacts, if you network through LinkedIn, if you network through one of these conferences, through a Seek conference, for anything like that, that's wonderful. But what I can tell you is that in the world, things move very quickly, and that works both in your favor and against your favor. So let me be more specific about timing. So I always talk about when I first got into about how I applied for a year and got rejected probably over 1,000 times, at least hundreds and hundreds of times. I was rejected or ghosted. And what I've learned now that I'm a hiring manager for is that timing is everything. Let me be more specific on that. Many times these companies, especially the insurance companies, which are the largest employer of docs, are always trying to get more business. They're always trying to get more contracts. They're always trying to expand their geography. They're always trying to do for another network, for another geographic location. They have business folks who that's all they do is try to broaden their business. And as you guys know, anybody who's worked in business is a tough field. Things move very fast and sometimes very unexpected. So you can literally be at a job or I can literally be in a position and I can literally hear one day, hey, you know what? We finally got that contract we've been after for 8 months or 12 months. So now we have a need for 5 other doctors on your team, as we call them FTEs, full-time equivalents, 5 FTEs on your team. And you need to get them up and trained and ready to go as soon as humanly possible, because we're going to start getting cases from that network in 3 months, and we got to be ready to go. This is the kind of thing that happens. So what am I doing? We're posting it on our website, and the first good CV I get, who's board certified, who's got some decent experience, I am scheduling them for an interview. Okay. But let me tell you what, though, that same candidate, if they applied 2 weeks before, they probably would have gotten either ghosted or rejected. Again, I don't write the rules, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just telling you what they are. The kind of the HR oasis for these big companies. Don't assume that they're going to put your CV on hold. Don't assume that every job listed currently is available. That's another one. Don't assume that you're going to even hear back. That's why my best advice is it's a numbers game. When the new positions come up, is why you have to be checking every single day. You need to be applying for that new position, because that happens all the time in UM, and which is good news for people like us, because it means there are definitely jobs that open up and that need good folks. But the flip side of that, though, is let's say that you have 20 years of UM experience, 20 years of clinical experience, and you're the most competent UM doc in the world, and you reach out to me and send me your CV today. I'd say, I can't do anything with this, but thank you, because we don't have any openings. I'd say just keep monitoring our website. That's how it works at a lot of the large health insurance companies. Yes, there's other things that happen at smaller companies where they may keep things on hold, but I'm just telling you how it works at the large health insurance companies. So that's why I always say to people, and you see me say this on Facebook and everywhere else, apply, apply, apply. And the clients that I work with, one of the biggest hurdles we have to get over is they fear rejection so much. I say, my gosh, I was rejected hundreds of times. I didn't even get to rejected status. I was just ghosted. My application would just go into the big dark oasis, and nothing ever happened. And I just got over it. And after a while, I started celebrating rejections, because every rejection is one step closer to an acceptance. And these jobs, especially UM jobs, as we were talking about, as Marie was talking about, MSL jobs, they're very competitive. There's more docs than ever that are looking to make a transition. The other thing is doctors are looking to make a transition earlier and earlier in their careers. My team, I would say on a whole, at this point, we have about 25 docs on my team. And we are all stages of our career. There's people who are in their early career, mid-career, late career. There's people who are post-retirement who just do this for fun. If that tells you anything about the job as well. So it is difficult to get a position, but it's definitely not impossible. It just takes persistence. And there's so many people who are there to help.
I think Jonathan's explanation of how to find your first full-time UM job is as clear and specific as any that I've heard. If you want to learn more from Jonathan, one way to do that is join the Remote Jobs for Physicians Facebook group and monitor the conversations or post your own questions in the group. You can find a link to that group on Facebook, as well as Jonathan's LinkedIn profile, related links, and a transcript of this episode at nonclinicalphysicians.com/utilization management jobs. So nonclinicalphysicians.com/utilization management jobs. And before I forget, remember, please register for this year's free summit called Clinical Practice, Make It Great or Move On. I think it's going to be fantastic. The live attendance is free, and we have 12 top-notch speakers, including Dr. Dyke Drummond and Dr. Neka Una, who will probably blow your mind with all the pearls that they have to share with you during the summit. And again, you can check that out at nonclinicalcareersummit.com and reserve your free spot right now. Remember that this podcast is made possible by support of the University of Tennessee Physician Executive MBA program. You can learn more about that at nonclinicalphysicians.com/physician MBA. The opinions expressed today are mine and my guests. And while the information provided in the podcast is true and accurate to the best of my knowledge, there's no guarantee that using the methods discussed will lead to success in your career, life, or business. So always consult an attorney, accountant, and or a career strategist before making any major decision about your career. I'm really excited about today's episode and next week's. So I hope to see you here Tuesday morning on the next episode of Physician Non-Clinical Careers, when I present my conversation with Dr. Jennifer Allen and nurse Kimberly Lowe, who opened an infusion lounge together in Missouri. I think that'll be very interesting and maybe challenging, and I'm really looking forward to it. So with that, I'll say goodbye for now.